Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Mo Show Live. It's Morse Lilienthal. Hey, if you live in North Alabama, today's guest needs no introduction. He has been your trusted weather resource for 14 years. Yes, I'm talking about Ben Smith with WHNT News 19. Excited to have Ben on today's show. Ben is an Emmy-winning award meteorologist. He's been here at News 19, I think, for over 14 years. As I said, when I started out, Ben, I know you've got degrees from East Carolina University, Mississippi State University. I think he's been in television 25 years, something like that. Ben, is that close to being right?
That's close enough.
Yeah. And we won't tell your age any more than that. And but he's certified by the American Meteorological Society, National Weather Association. And I thanked him before we went live that he is one of the first guests on my podcast, and so grateful for him doing that early on. And I'm excited to have him back. But we're not going to be talking about the weather today. So if you got weather questions, may want to hold those. I've been really entrenched in learning and loving to watch Ben's journey with photography, and he shares this out on social media. He shares it occasionally out on the newscast, and so I reached out and said, Ben, let's sit down and talk and let everybody know where that came from. So, Ben, how are you doing, man? Thank you for taking time today.
I appreciate the invite, absolutely, and the photography thing. It was, Morris, to be honest with you, is one of the biggest blessings of my life. I never saw it coming, and it was something that was disappointing, an event that turned out to be just absolutely fantastic. So let me tell you exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago. Just so you know, 2 years ago, I never picked up a professional camera in my life. So we were going to a football game, and both my buddies decided they were going to cancel on me, and I wanted to go by myself. So I asked Rocco DeSangro, who was our sports director at the time. Yep. I was like, man, do you got one of those press passes? Maybe can you get me on the field? Maybe. He's like, yeah, Ben, just fill this form out, and I just put photographer down. And I was like, I'll just go as a photographer. Well, they sent me an email back, says, okay, Ben, you're approved. So I went down to the local store and I bought the cheapest camera I could buy. And I got a camera 101 crash course. I was like, dude, how do you use this thing? And that's exactly what happened. Pictures were awful. Pictures were grainy, but it was Morris was so much fun. I went back for week 2. They approved me again. Then I went back for week 3. And I just kept practicing, and I got me a better lens so I could get a little more reach. And that's how it started.
That's awesome. I love it. And you know, if people follow Ben on social or watch the newscast, you know he has a passion for sports, and that's one of his interests outside of meteorology and then I love it that you're like, hey, I'm going to this game and I want to, hey, if I'm going to be by myself, let me get on the field and hey, I'll be a photographer for the day. And then all of a sudden it's turned into what appears, Ben, from the outside looking in, a real passion and maybe a hobby and just a stress relief for you.
It's all three. I mean, I can go down to Gunnersville and try to shoot the Eagles, and you really don't know what you're going to get down there. I've been down there for 3 hours and not gotten a shot. I've been down there for 20 minutes and gotten everything I wanted. But even if I don't get anything, you know, the wind blowing in your face and the water it's calming, it's soothing, yeah. It's therapeutic. It's good for my mental health. And to get out and about, and I've met so many people. I've met other photographers. I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of folks, and it's been a big learning experience for me. And it's, you know, ISO and shutter speed and aperture, you know, all that kind of stuff. I didn't know anything about it. And now I've done it enough where I can kind of explain it and help other folks out too. And it's just been, I mean, I can't even describe the last 2 years of where I've been, the opportunities that have come from this. And it was all because of a mistake that ended up being one of the biggest blessings of my life.
Your buddies did you a solid by not going to the game with you that day.
They absolutely did. They were just like, Ben, wow. I mean, just think if they had come, none of this would have happened. None of it.
just so nothing before that 2 years ago when you just kind of were kind of making the connection to get to the game and try to get a better seat. You'd never picked up a camera or anything other than just maybe a cell phone or something like that taking photos. You never done anything like that, huh?
No. I mean, I had one of those cameras back in the 1990s and stuff that you would take to the store and get the film produced, and
Yeah.
would you like single or double print, stuff like that.
Right.
But nothing that had one of those telephoto lenses or anything like that. No idea at all. No.
And have you, as you've progressed, has it all been just learning on the fly, other than the initial crash course the day of when you bought your first camera to go that first week? Or have you taken any classes or YouTube videos or learned from people at the station or something?
No classes. YouTube videos help out a lot. I've met a lot of those Getty Images guys, the photos that are just you see on the NFL and things like that.
Yeah.
I'll ask those guys, like, look, man, my shot's really grainy. Can you help me out here a little bit? Can you? And I would just have to adjust my settings just a little bit, and it would make all the difference in the world. But yeah, it's just a lot. If I have a question, I'll ask, or I'll go to YouTube or something. And I'm a pretty fast learner and stuff, so I've picked it up pretty quick. I haven't had any real major problems. I still have my first game up on my wall up here, some of the photos I printed out, and they're awful, but it's just a reminder, hey, where I started. And I think it's a good learning experience too, to say, hey, look, don't forget, where you came from.
Yeah.
And even though those pictures are awful, it's just a reminder.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I love it. It's just kind of you've developed a passion for it, and you just kind of said, "Well, we'll figure this out," and kind of just keep developing and doing. I was curious and kind of thinking about today. Do you think there is an intersection in your career as a meteorologist and your passion for photography? Meaning, do you think there are characteristics that make you a good meteorologist that make you a good photographer?
Great question. Both of them do intersect. There's always that part where it's the unknown. I mean, I can go out with the weather, and there's always that little inkling that, what's going to happen next that you may not know. There's always that probability in weather, as we know. Same thing in photography. I can go out to a football game. I'll be doing the Stallions game this weekend, and I can get the generic warm-ups and seeing the players warm up, but man, you never know what you're going to get. I'm trying to think. I had a touchdown. CJ Marable scored a touchdown last year in Memphis. And, I'm friends with him. He's the running back. And he literally cut back to the inside. He could have run right into the end zone, but he cut all the way across the field just to come to me and pose right in front of me.
Oh.
And his play. And I got a picture of the whole thing. I mean, he's like Superman up there. And all his buddies came in and posed in front of the camera. And the Getty Images guys the next week were so mad because of that. But yeah, same thing when I went out to the Grand Tetons. We're just sitting there, just minding our own business, and here comes a female moose out of the woods with her calf in tow, and it's pot luck.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and sometimes you're not going to get the shot. You're not going to get stuff, but every now and then you do get lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think, I think part of your job, I would imagine at the station is, an understanding of technology and that. And I would think you're being tech savvy, for lack of a better way of saying it, is probably advanced and made it a little easier for you to do better at photography, especially when you're learning on the fly.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but can you repeat that one more time? I think I lost you for a second.
Sure. Yeah. I was just saying, I know a lot of what you do in your day job or morning job as a meteorologist revolves around technology and understanding technology and using technology. And, as tech has become so advanced and developed into, the photographic world and film and everything else, I would assume that's helped you kind of pick this up on your own a little quicker than somebody else who may not be tech savvy using a camera and the lenses and all that.
Yeah, but you've got to be fast with it. You just gotta know your equipment with everything, and you have to. A lot of folks may take that and just put it on the auto setting, but the auto setting is not going to work when you've got players running down the field. You've got objects moving. One thing with photography, before you even pick up a camera, you have to know what you're shooting. If there's enough light, if your subject is moving, the depth of field. There's a lot of questions you have to answer before you can even put a setting up there. And, weather's the same way. You got to have to know what the current conditions are first and kind of set the stage of what's going to happen. A lot of times what happens today has a lot to do what's going to happen tomorrow in the weather. And you can get a good baseline. If it's 85 degrees and you got a big ridge overhead, chances are it's going to be just as warm, if not a little bit warmer the next day.
Right.
And, same thing with frontal boundaries. It usually takes, 3 days for a front to come across the country, and you can kind of time out when it's going to rain. And, it's the same thing. You just got to know your equipment and know your technology. And it makes things a lot easier opposed to trying to panic and learn. And you're going to miss stuff if you do that.
Right.
Both weather and photography.
Yeah. Well, and you just made a good point that I guess, because I hadn't thought about it, but it just seems like good, straightforward common sense to me, but I hadn't thought about it, which is, if you're out taking photographs of a sporting event, basketball, baseball, football, especially football and basketball with a lot of action, as opposed to prom pictures, then that may be a different type of lens and a different settings and things that your setup's going to be, I'm assuming, totally different than for those two types of shoots, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing now, everybody, when you're watching a football game, watch the photographers on the sideline, because the lens I have, my main lens, I can shoot out to maybe the 50-yard line and get a pretty good shot. I can get the whole football field, but it's a little grainy there at the end. But notice when those football players come into the end zone, you'll see the photographer on the sideline drop their big lens, and they're like struggling to grab their other one that can get the close-up shot. And some of them get it, some of them don't. Some of them have it down just perfectly where they can switch within 2 seconds and they don't miss it. But I see guys fumbling. they fumble for their camera all the time on the sideline. As a photographer, you look at the game differently. If a quarterback's going back to pass and he throws that ball, you are on the wide receiver. Your camera is focused on that wide receiver. You're not looking at the ball. You're not looking at anything. You're on that shutter. So the ball's in the air and I'm already clicking. And I'm clicking all the way through until that ball is caught or that ball hits the ground. And if he catches a touchdown, I'm not celebrating. I am still clicking because they're going to celebrate. They're going to jump up and down. They're going to slap hands. They're going to do some type of dance.
Right.
And I'm clicking like crazy, not even thinking about all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's like a job to you, because if you take time to participate or show the enthusiasm as a fan, you're going to miss your opportunity and do that. But it's so funny. I never thought about that, but I do. When I've been to sporting events, I will see those photographers on the field or on the court, and they usually have like a strap with a camera here, and then they've got like other cameras attached to them and so I see what you're saying now, that they've got one for a certain distance and one for another distance, and that makes common sense. But I'd never thought about it because I haven't gone out and done it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been there before. I was out there. There was an eagle's nest in Guntersville that's way out there, and I got about 800. I mean, this thing it's a monster lens. And there was a snake right in front of me that was like in the grass, and I couldn't get a shot of it with my camera. I mean, I couldn't do it because it was too close.
Yeah, it's like you got a telescope. You're trying to look at something right in front of you with a telescope.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do it. I'm backing up so many times. I'm backing up because it's not designed for anything that's close up. So that's why you see so many lenses and things like that.
That makes good sense. Ben, this question, it may be based upon the subject matter but I'm just curious, from your vantage point in the last 2 years, what do you think makes a good photograph? I mean, if you maybe you say it's in sports or maybe you say it's in nature, but what would you say if you said that's a good photograph? What would you say the characteristics of a great photograph
The number one thing I look for is the clarity. And now I've developed an eye for it, and I can tell what's clear and what's not. And photos I used to keep when I first started, or even the first year I would keep, I delete them. I don't keep as many as I used to. The going rate, Mo, is like literally it's like 5%. That's how many photos I keep of everything I take.
Well, give us an idea. When you go to the Stallions game this weekend, how many photos will you come home with, give or take, before you start deleting?
Okay, so in the first half, I will take about 400 photos.
Okay.
And then I will delete them down to about 150. That's in the first half. Second half, it just kind of depends because there's a lot of extra stuff going on at the end of the game. I'm running out there. I want the handshake of the coaches. Got to get out there because that's one thing I'll do. I mean, if you watch on TV, I mean, I'm running out there and you'll see me. And because I got Bob Stoops. I went out to Arlington, Texas, got Bob Stoops, who used to coach at Oklahoma.
Yeah, sure.
He's coaching at for Arlington. And I got he and Skip Holtz shaking hands. So I'll take 800 pictures. I'll come home with like 200. And then I'll edit maybe 75 of them. And then I'll post maybe 30. So when
you're dwindling that down, so you're saying that, are you dwindling some of them down just on the spot, maybe at halftime, and you're just like, blurry, either the subject wasn't good, the clarity wasn't good, or whatever, and it's just delete on your camera right then?
Yeah, and a lot of them are duplicates. I mean, I got a guy diving in the end zone, and I've got like 15 pictures of him with the ball out, and I'll just take usually like 2 of them, and I'll delete the other 13.
Okay.
And sometimes I won't know if they're super clear or not until I get home. You kind of hope they are. You think you got something, and
right.
I've actually I deleted a bunch of them by accident because I wasn't paying attention. And my friends been, don't ever delete anything. I was like, I'm not going through 1,000 pictures. I'm not doing that. Right. But the ones I deleted, I'll go ahead and tell you. I did the Alabama-Kentucky game in Lexington, and it was Nick Saban's last year, and I got all of them coming out the tunnel. Nick Saban's like right there. And usually I'll save them as I go, and then I'll delete them and go to the next play and the next play. Well, I forgot to save them, and I deleted all those. Deleted every last, and I didn't realize it until halftime. And I literally.
Were you sick to your stomach?
A tear almost came down my face. Almost. I was so upset, and I got Cody Keenum down over. He's played at Mars Hill.
Yeah.
Offensive tackle. He's playing at Kentucky. Got a perfect shot of him praying when they took the field. Perfect shot. Unbelievable shot. Couldn't wait to give it to him. And that was another one that got deleted.
Oh, my goodness.
And just I was dumb. I was just in a hurry and didn't think about it.
Well, that kind of stuff we all, as I say, fat finger it sometimes, or do something you do like that, and you just get busy and you're trying to move and do too quick, and you're just trying to pressure it and do. Is there, as I mentioned, I think we were talking right before we went live. We were talking about doing nature shots, doing some weather. I saw a bunch of photos of the eclipse. Obviously, that's right up your alley. And then sports and travel, and done some local event stuff like the prom I was giving you a hard time about, and doing. Is there one or two that really just, if you could narrow it down, that's like, boy, that's really my sweet spot. I really enjoy that the most. Is it sports? Is it nature? Or does it all kind of just get you fired up?
It's all of it. I mean, I just, the nature stuff, the Eagles it depends if they're behaving or not. I mean, you get out there and they're either up in the nest and they're sitting up there for an hour and a half and they're not moving around. That can be frustrating at times. I mean, football, you can't go wrong with football, no matter what level it is.
Mhm.
It's a ball. The pageantry of it, that never gets old. You know, the travel stuff is good. I mean, I did the Little Rock, and I went out to the Grand Tetons, which was just absolutely fabulous. Trying to fly with your camera equipment is kind of tough. I don't like doing that
Right.
because you got to check that stuff at the airport, and you don't want to break anything. And so I try to drive wherever I go if I can.
That
But
makes
I don't
sense.
know. It's a good question. I got a blind runner at the marathon, the Rocket City Marathon 2 years ago, which was probably my favorite shot of all time I've done.
Really. Yeah. Um, so if somebody is out there and they, because I think you're the perfect person to ask this question, because if we were talking to a photographer who has all this, 25 years of experience and is just the T-top of their game and just so high in, I love it that you kind of just on the ground, on the fly, and have learned it yourself and do. So if somebody said, Ben, I want to learn to be a better photographer, to take better pictures of my child's sporting events or at the play or a family picture kind of stuff. Give us 2 or 3 things that you'd recommend and maybe some basic, affordable type equipment you'd recommend.
Well, I don't want to endorse anything because I mean, there are all kinds of cameras out there. There's a lot of affordable cameras out because it can get pretty pricey, Mo.
Right.
I gotta be honest. Some of those and photographers on here will tell you, I have a Canon R6, and it's I'd save up a lot for it, and I would just say I don't know, just start off small and just kind of work your way up, kind of like what I did. Just keep moving and just keep practicing. And just keep going and going. And just, as they say, practice makes perfect. And, that's kind of how I did it. And just ask YouTube, just go on YouTube. I mean, seriously. And then there's a lot of photographers out there that have been doing it a long time, and they can give you a lot of, tips and stuff. And, photography is like the weather too. It's not an exact science. There's no spot where you can, okay, this is it, because you can always change it just a little bit. You can always open up that aperture. I mean, you can always adjust that ISO. You can always bring a little bit more light in. You got post-production stuff like editing. That's a big part of it. To be familiar with Photoshop and some of these editing softwares, you have to do that too. You have to get in there and edit your photos to make sure everything is in balance.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I learned, kind of what you were just saying already, though, is that maybe, well, if you're just not really trying to dial it in, auto's probably okay. But if you're really trying to dial it in, learning how to start using the settings and just experimenting with that and maybe doing some YouTube videos sounds like a good starting point, for what people that are maybe trying to get into the entry level of photography and doing. I guess I'm curious if you got a bucket list, or is there a sporting event? Is there somewhere you want to go to take photos, whether it's the Grand Canyon or whether it's, the Super Bowl or whatnot? Is there some national championship for Alabama?
Well, I'm always buttering up Olivia, our sports director, and I'm always saying, hey, Olivia, if you guys aren't going, because they're working, they're doing their job and everything. But if they're ever, not going to go, like they couldn't go to Kentucky last year because they had high school football and it was like an 11 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. So there was just no way they could have made the 5-hour drive, whether it's 6 hours up to Lexington.
Right.
So they let me do that one. But, whatever comes, I don't ever get my hopes up about where I went to the Grand Tetons in September. I'm going to Niagara Falls in June.
Okay.
Of course, it's tough to get out there. I mean, they're very strict on who gets on the field. Even with the UFL, the new the new football league up here, they were just saying. Matter of fact, when I applied, because I did all last year, the guy asked me a question. He's like, "Well, you're media, so why are you going to be on the field?" was like, well, I'm a photographer too. So I actually sent him some of my photos from last year, and he was like, "Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, you're right." So I thought that, but the NFL and stuff, those guys are just. I follow a couple of those guys on YouTube. The Pittsburgh Steelers guy, and they're set up. I know the guy that does the Cleveland Browns. I mean, these guys, their setups are just unbelievable. Their photos go just national, go international. The guy that ripped off Mason Rudolph's helmet, the guy for the Browns, who's that? The defensive end. He played at Texas A&M. Myles Garrett.
Yeah, Myles Garrett.
Yeah, remember when he ripped off? I don't know if you all remember that. It's a few
Yeah.
years back. That's his photo. Yeah, with him. It's like, gosh. He's like, yeah, that thing got shared like 10,000 times or something. But yeah, getting on the field, Mo, is tough for NFL football. You got to know somebody. You have to. I don't know how that works.
Well, it's pretty cool. I'll tell you what I really appreciate that you do, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, is that, obviously through your interaction here in North Alabama with the station and being, the trusted weather source and where everybody turns and listens to, especially during severe weather, you built a real close rapport with the local communities around here, from, Huntsville, the bigger areas to the smaller areas out. But I really enjoy when I see the pictures and little snippets on the newscast where you've been out to the local smaller schools and communities to photograph their sporting events. Because, it's one thing, that, the University of Alabama or Auburn or whoever, they've got a team of photographers or the NFL or whoever. But a lot of these smaller schools don't have the opportunity to have somebody that's really that passionate to come out and shoot their games and do. So I think that's awesome that you do that. And I know that when you share those photos, that those fans and parents and kids just really get a kick out of that. And they've got a connection with you because they feel like they know you from seeing you on TV every morning and doing it when the severe weather comes up. So thank you for doing that. I think that's really awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. I usually go. I'm usually at Fife High School a lot. I went over to Sheffield and they did their charity softball game. I'm doing. I think next Wednesday. I was like, man, it's kind of tough for me to get over there, but I'm gonna go. And this one lady wants me to take some photographs of her child is like in 8th grade and playing softball. So I'm gonna take some softball photos. And that's tough too. I didn't realize it, Mo, but man, baseball fields are bigger than I thought. So I could only get, with the lens I had, I could only get everything in the infield. I couldn't get anything in the outfield that was decent. So I got to use my big lens when I go out there so I can get everybody from the pitcher all the way to the outfield. So I'll be doing some softball. And I haven't done much softball. I've only done like 2 softball games my whole life. So.
Well, we got some great softball here in North Alabama. There's no doubt about that. We see a lot of our players go on to play collegiately, and our local teams do well in the state tournament here and do so. I'm sure you're going to do a great job, which means you may get hit up to do more of them. So to be prepared. Well, Ben, I want to be grateful for your time and respectful of everything. But really, thank you so much for taking time today. I know I can just tell from when you get on in the mornings and for that couple minutes a week, you share some photos, you just light up. And I knew just from kind of interacting with you through the TV and seeing your post on social that this was something you really enjoyed. And to learn that it all happened by really a mistake and some of your buddies bailing on you last minute, that makes it even cooler.
Well, thank you. And I tell you what, everybody at home, man, if you never know, just something negative could turn into a big time positive. Like a lot of us get frustrated in the moment, but usually down the road there's an answer for that problem you might have in the current. Because I know I was upset at that because when they announced the USFL, they announced it way in advance. We got our Birmingham Stallion shirts, we had our hats. I mean, we were ready to go, and last second they're like, sorry, and here we are. And I would have never guessed it. And that's one of the biggest blessings.
Well, sometimes in life, as I'm sure you've experienced with other areas of your life as well, that some of the biggest blessings you have come out of the blue. And, you know, and that's just really cool. And hey, guess what? Birmingham Stallions are great. I mean, they've won back-to-back championships, and they're doing great this year. So, hey, that's fun to get to go do those games as well. I'm sure that's just a real big kick. And you know, a lot of those players are players that y'all know from college and other programs that we know from other sporting past. And so, Ben, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. If you've got questions or comments, leave them in the comments afterwards, and then we'll try to respond to them and do. But check out Ben. Most of you already are on Facebook there or on Twitter, and you'll get to see more photos of Ben in the future. Ben, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.